Okay, here we go. I'll do the Mangalacharanam. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai. So welcome everyone today to the class. We'll do our memorization verse for this week, which is 1322. 1322. Purusha prakriti stohi punkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sada sadyoni janmasu. Do it again. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karnam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. And the song. The living entity in material nature do 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 thus follows the ways of life. Enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Jai. All right. So we finished chapter 15 today. What genre of music would you call that, Arjuna?
I was just meditating on how you come up with the tunes.
No.
They're
I
so
remember
fun.
I was in Jagannath Puri and I was trying to think of a melody for that one because we were starting the semester for the I was teaching at Sri Mayapur International School and I was teaching the my teenage students with these songs. They love the songs. So I was like, it took me days to figure out the tune and I was just like I knew the words and I was just like trying different melodies out and I was like trying as I was walking down the street and trying when I was on the beach and trying when I was and then I don't know, probably I was in the shower one day and I was like, that's it. So that was a hard one. But it ended up being like one of my favorite melodies. What to do. Okay, so chapter 16 is a really fun chapter. It's called The Divine and Demoniac Natures. So the first three verses are about the divine nature. We'll read that today, and we probably won't even get to the end of it today because it's a super long purport. Maybe a couple days on this purport, but that's nice because we get to spend some time meditating on the divine qualities, and hopefully that meditation will help us acquire these divine qualities. And then the whole rest of the chapter practically is about the demoniac qualities. So one devotee, I remember, I think it was Ritadvaja Maharaj. Ritadvaja Maharaj, he's a sannyasi here, and he's also a guru in ISKCON. He spends a lot of time here in Dallas, but he was giving class in Gainesville, and he said, All right, so now I'm going to read my autobiography. Gonna read about myself here. Anyways, that's why it's here in the Bhagavad Gita is because we're meant to introspect on these qualities and look within our own hearts and whatever divine qualities are not there, then we can pray for those and try to cultivate those, try to look for those qualities in others and emulate them, follow in their footsteps, serve them, pray for them to give us those qualities. And then we can also similarly look into our hearts when we're reading the demoniac qualities and be like, all right, honestly speaking, to what extent is that there? And then we know what we need to work on. And we can flag these qualities when they sometimes come up, because sometimes we surprise ourselves with our saintliness, and sometimes we also surprise ourselves and others with our dark side, right? So, but knowing these qualities and how they manifest in some detail here, as we'll see in this chapter, is actually really helpful. That when we see it, we can be like, oh my God, that's the demoniac quality. I gotta like not act on that. I gotta just go and calm down and chant a couple rounds and pray to Krishna for help with this one. So yeah, it's very practical. Okay, so that said, now we shall dive into texts 1 to 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samshudhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Danam Damascha Yagyascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodhas Tyaga Shantir Apaishunam Daya Bhutesh Valo Luptam Mardavam Hrir Achapalam Teja Kshama Dviti Shocham Adroho Nati Manita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata. All right. Would you like to read the translation and some of the purport? Legacy.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non violence, truthfulness, freedom and from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities with divine nature. Purport. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities. Some auspicious, some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter also, the devas or godly and the asuras, the ungodly or demons, were explained. Now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious for progress on the path of liberation, and such activities are known as Devi Prakriti, transcendental by nature. Those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animals or even lower life forms. In the 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities and the demonic nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantages and disadvantages of these qualities. Should I read?
Go ahead.
The word Abhijatsya, in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies, is very significant. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known to beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as Garbhadhan Samskar. if the parents wants a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of the human being. In Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. Sex life is not condemned, provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, you can just pause there. So, yeah, so Srila Prabhupada is making the point, he's stressing this word, Abujatasia, means that these people, some people are born with these qualities. So that's an exalted soul, right? Who's done a lot of pious acts or devotional service in the past life, that they're born with good qualities. And sometimes we see like, children that have like a really very peaceful, friendly and compassionate, kind nature. Yeah. And then other children are just like little monsters. They just terrorize other kids. They'll like poke babies' eyes or just. I saw when some kids were playing in the sand, this one kid just picked up a handful of sand and went over and just like dropped it in the other kid's head. And I was just like, why would you do that? Right? It's like, oh my God. Anyways, yeah, so some kids are born with godly natures and some are born with ungodly natures. So that just, it depends on past life. So then this is relevant because like most of you in this class are young people who are planning at some point to get married and have your own children. So the thing is that we want to attract a nice godly child with divine qualities, right, into our families so that we can, yeah, a child who's like, Prabhupada would say, especially if kids that are born in devotee families, like Vaikuntha children, right? If not, I mean, there's a chance that you could get a child who is like a Nitya Siddha who's coming down from the spiritual world to like spread Krishna consciousness, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility, right? Or you could get a child who, is maybe, fell down to the material world, but has been practicing, religious processes and sadhana bhakti for maybe even lifetimes. And then this is, they have this Krishna gave that child to you to make this their last birth in material worlds because you're the person who's going to guide them back home, back to Godhead. There are different possibilities. So a lot of it depends on the consciousness of the father and mother, at the time of conception, especially. So Prabhupada's talking about the importance of begetting a child in a godly atmosphere. So, yeah. And then not just that, but yeah, I mean, Prabhupada says sex life is not condemned, provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. So to not beget children like cats and dogs, but to actually be very conscious, like, not just get swept up in passion and end up conceiving a child, right? But to like, the husband and wife sit down together and like, let's have a child. What kind of child do we want? How are we going to make sure that we get a nice child and, hopefully someone who's on the spiritual path that we can help continue on that path. And so that is Garbhadan Samskara. So that's why Brahmachari ashram is there for, I mean, not just for this purpose, but also for this purpose of teaching young people how to control the mind, how to control the senses, how to be Krishna conscious, how to be self-controlled and austere, so that everything can be done very intentionally, very consciously, and including conceiving children, so that you can get a child with these divine qualities, because like just hearing these qualities is like, wow, so nice, right? You want to meet someone. So if you have a child like that, then that's really a beautiful thing. Yeah. And then Prabhupada says here that there are 10 principles recommended for social life for the human being. So yeah, these are all the different stages, right? Like Garbhadan Samskar is one. And then after that, there's the birth ceremony, there's the naming ceremony, there's the first grain ceremony, the first hair cutting ceremony, the first day of school ceremony. And then, of course, when the child grows up, then there's initiation. If they take initiation, there's the marriage ceremony, there's ceremony for entering the new home, and then there's what else? Well, there's the funeral ceremony. So there are all these 10 things that which go throughout one's whole life, so that every like milestone of the human being's life is celebrated with devotion, right? Is ushered in an act of devotion to the Lord, right? So like just conceiving the child should be an act of devotion, that the parents are doing this as a service to Krishna to bring a Krishna conscious child into the world. And then, yeah, and then the name giving and all that, that's done like with kirtan. You invite, like the guru to give a name or something like that. And first day of school, it's like this is Krishna conscious education. And you say prayers for the child to be able to absorb transcendental knowledge, to become, learned in not just materially, but spiritually in Gurukul, like that. So all of these things, Prabhupada is saying, are very important for the social life and the spiritual life of the human being. Yeah. So this is all part of the Varnashram system. So now what Srila Prabhupada is going to do is he's going to introduce Varnashram Dharma, the 4 Varnas and the four ashrams, and he's going to talk about how specifically some of these the particular qualities listed here pertain specifically to one Varna or one ashram more than the others. So that's kind of interesting. So you can think, if you're a brahmachari, brahmacharini, or if you're a grihasta, or what really you need to cultivate in that ashram. Okay. And we'll talk about why that specific thing is linked with that specific varna or ashram. Okay. Would you like to read, Divya? Maybe you need to come a little closer so everyone can hear you. All the online peoples out there. Should I?
The social institution known as Varnashram Dharma, the institution dividing society into 4 divisions of spiritual life and 4 occupational divisions or castes, is not meant to divide human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. In the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi or the person in the renounced order of life is considered to be the head or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. A Brahmin is considered to be the spiritual master of the 3 other sections of a society, namely the Kshatriya, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. But a sannyasi who is on the top of the institution is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmins also. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness, because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support. He has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is always within, that he is seeing everything and he always knows what one intends to do. One must thus have firm conviction that Krishna as Paramatma will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone. One should think, even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called abhayam, fearlessness. The state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. Then he has to purify his existence. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. Most important of all, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, his feminine devotees could not, when he was at Puri, His feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respects. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. One has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular status of life in order to purify his existence. For a sannyasi, intimate relations with women and possession of wealth for sense gratification are strictly forbidden. The ideal sannyasi was Lord Chaitanya himself, and we can learn from his life that he was very strict in regards to women, although he is considered to be the most liberal incarnation of Godhead. Accepting the most fallen conditioned souls, he strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyas order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, namely Chota Haridas, was associated with Lord Chaitanya along with his other confidential personal associates. But somehow or other, this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he at once rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi, or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature and go back to Godhead, for him, looking toward material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking toward them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the processes for purification.
Yeah, you can pause there. The first three qualities actually here are for the sannyasis, particularly. Of course, in one sense, they're for everyone, but they're especially for the sannyasis. So the first quality is fearlessness. So to take sannyas, one has to be fearless because you just travel alone all over the world. You have no home. You have no connection with relatives. You have no bank account. You have no possessions, and you're just totally you have no support except Krishna. You're just totally depending on Krishna. So Prabhupada says, if somebody thinks after I leave my family, who will take care of me? Or after I quit my job or retire, how will I eat? Or, how will I be, taken care of? Then one shouldn't take sannyas. One has to be completely confident that Krishna is going to provide everything that I need. Krishna is going to take care of me, and he's going to guide me, and everything. And also, if someone is thinking, well, if I give up my family and this and that, and I'm always traveling, I'm just going to be alone. Like if you're traveling all the time, it's hard to have close relationships with anybody because you kind of breeze in, you give a few classes, you talk to a few people, and then you just leave after 3 or 4 days, if that. And some sannyasis, they stay just a day or 2 days in one place and they just go. So, and they travel alone without even a servant, like an assistant. So, but if somebody thinks, oh, I'll be lonely, then they shouldn't take sannyas to stay with the family and you got people with you. So sannyasi has to have the sense that Krishna is with me. My spiritual master is with me. Yeah. Prabhupada writes, one should think, even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. So, of course, amazing example of that is Srila Prabhupada, because he was so fearless, right? Even at an old age, when people have a lot of fears, like I'm getting to not that old yet, but I was talking to an old person in their 70s recently, and he was telling me that he has a lot of fear and anxiety. And I said, what are you afraid of? And he said, well, I'm coming to the point of my life where I just can't do things. I literally can't maintain myself. I can't take it. I can't work anymore. And it's going to just get worse. Like it's going to get to the point where I just can't take care of myself. And I'm used to being on top of things and not only taking care of myself, but taking care of other people. And it's like, what's going to happen to me? And what's going to happen to other people that I was taking care of now that I can't take care of, you know? So yeah, it's a cause for anxiety for people who get old, right? But Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't worried about it. You know, he got on a boat. You know, he didn't know anyone. He had no money, and he also had complete confidence that Krishna would take care of his family. Krishna will like provide for them. They're not going to starve. They're not going to die without him, and that he also is not going to starve and not going to die without his business or without people to help him. And he just got on that boat and he had no idea what was going to happen. Absolutely. He didn't even know if there was going to be like food to eat. Like he brought some puffed rice and some, little things with him, some potatoes or something, because someone told him that in the West, there's no vegetables. They only eat meat over there. So Srila Prabhupada was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'll just bring some puffed rice and potatoes and see how long I can survive. And if it looks like I'm going to starve, I'll get the boat back or something. But yeah, he just like went. Eh. So, and then one of his disciples, after he started getting some followers, then Prabhupada would speak a little bit about that first year when he was alone, because for a whole year he was just alone. He went first to Butler, Pennsylvania. He did a few classes there. He was staying with an Indian family, like Indian man, and his wife was American. He used to stay with them for a little bit, and it was okay, but he could see that he wasn't going to fulfill his mission in small town of Butler, Pennsylvania. So then he went to New York, where he thought, okay, there's more people, I can make more of an impact. But then he didn't have any place to stay. Then he kind of like met this Indian yoga teacher, Dr. Mishra. So Dr. Mishra said he had a room next to his yoga studio. It was just like a closet, basically. It was like a large closet, like a very small room with no window, no running water, nothing. And Prabhupada was living in that room. And, he was doing his translations and purports to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And he had probably like someone broke into that room, even such a bad room it was, but even then it was like not even safe. Someone broke in, stole his typewriter and smashed stuff. And then after that, yeah, and then he saw that, oh, I'm not going to get anywhere preaching with this impersonalist yoga teacher who won't even let me speak to his audience because he's afraid I'm going to cause dissension. I'm going to be teaching, because he was like an impersonalist and Prabhupada was teaching, no, Jana Hare Krishna. So there was some conflict there. And then Dr. Mishra told him, you can lead kirtan, but don't say anything. So Prabhupada was like, all right, this is not working. I need to preach. So then he went to the Lower East Side, and he was just walking the streets, wondering where he was going to go. And then he met Michael Grant, that was his name, and who ended up being his disciple. And then he walked up to him. He said, "Are you a sannyasi?" And then Prabhupada was so happy that someone knew something about anything about Indian culture, and he said, "Yes, I'm a sannyasi. How do you know about sannyasis?" And he said, "Oh, I was reading a book about India, and I saw there were some pictures of sannyasis, and I because Prabhupada was wearing his full sannyas regalia, right?" So then they started talking, and then he asked Prabhupada, where are you staying? And then, where do you live? Where are you based or whatever? And Prabhupada was just like, actually, nowhere. Like I'm kind of without a fixed residence right now. So then he helped Prabhupada to get situated in an apartment, small apartment with a person he knew. But then that person he knew turned out to be nuts, and he was taking a lot of drugs. And one day he like took too many drugs and he kind of went off his head and he started getting aggressive and violent. And Prabhupada was afraid that he was going to attack him and even kill him. So he just left. And he just walked out. And then he went and moved in with Michael Grant and his wife, Jan. And he was staying there, but they had cats, and Jan was not too cool with having a sannyasi live with them. And anyways, then Michael Grant teamed up with some friends, and they ended up getting enough money to pay the first month's rent for the storefront, 26 Second Avenue. And then, yeah, and that was Prabhupada's first place where he could really do something, because it was a storefront. So it's like a nice place for people to come in, like a public place. And Prabhupada stayed there. He incorporated ISKCON in that little place, and it's still there. So yeah, so then I think one of his disciples, so then as soon as he got that place, he started going out and doing kirtan in Tompkins Square Park in New York, and people started coming. Young people, old people, all kinds of people started coming, especially the young people were very interested, because there are a lot of people who were kind of disgusted with materialism because of the war in Vietnam and all that, and they were looking for alternative ways of life, peaceful ways, cultures that promote peace and nonviolence, and they were kind of looking to India, knowing it to be a peaceful and religious and spiritual place. So they were very attracted to Prabhupada, and they saw him as someone who could be offering what they're looking for. So anyways, he started making devotees. And so after a while, when Prabhupada was telling them about all these, his experience of that first year was just kind of like struggling alone and not getting anywhere and having so many, reversals. One of the devotees asked him, weren't you lonely? Wasn't it a really lonely existence? And Prabhupada said, you know what? I never felt alone. I always felt that my spiritual master was with me. Because the whole reason that Srila Prabhupada came to America was to fulfill the order of his spiritual master. So he was constantly connecting with that instruction and praying to his guru, please empower me to be able to fulfill your order, which he had really devoted himself to. So yeah, this fearlessness, Prabhupada was just so fearless. And yeah, so then and it's the Sanskrit word here for that. Sattva samshuddhir. Yeah, basically it means living in pure goodness. So that's sannyasi has to keep himself in very pure, because if any influence of motive passion or ignorance come in, then it's not possible to stay sannyasi, right? Because the motive passion pushes one towards, sex life basically, and wanting to get material comforts and worship and things like that. So sannyasi is supposed to live simple life, very detached, very renounced, nothing to do with women or wealth. So motive passion pushes someone to pursue women or opposite sex and wealth. And so those things are forbidden for sannyasis. So yeah, and Prabhupada gives the example of this one sannyas associate of him, Chota Haridas, and how Lord Chaitanya actually rejected him because he had some lustful feelings towards a young woman. So Lord Chaitanya was very, very strict. He was setting the example. And that was, yeah, very important for devotees because, the process of bhakti is different from other processes in that bhakti, we don't reject the things of this world, but we connect everything to Krishna. And we use everything in Krishna's service. So there's a sense in which others can see devotees as just being, sense gratifiers, right? Because other groups, they'll just eat very simply, but devotees will eat, sumptuous prasadam. Devotees feast, right? And other very strict Vedic systems, they don't allow, men and women to have any association at all. But in bhakti, you can get married, you can, interact with women to some extent. So, doing service together and things like that. So there's a sense in which, opportunities are there for sense gratification in bhakti. But one has to remain pure so that they don't get, what's the word? They don't just get pulled away by those things, right? Like a sannyasi may have female disciples, right? Maybe preaching to a mixed group, men and women, or sometimes women or married couples might come to him with their problems and relationship issues and things like that. And so sannyasi has to just keep very pure so that there's no tinge. Those things don't influence him. So yeah, purification is very important. Somebody there? Okay, I talked a lot. Any questions about any of these points? We're having class now. Till 5. It finishes at 5. Okay. Any thoughts, Arjuna?
Yes, I was, thank you so much for your point. I mean, on the purport, it says that, most specifically for sannyasis, but it says that in general, anyone who wants to, I don't remember a specific wording, but kind of like progress in spiritual life, they should avoid the association of women, um, or something around that line, I think. But anyways, I feel like this argument is used sometimes, by like some brahmacharis and whatnot. Um, I just wonder how you, I don't know how that works out in the West, you know?
Yeah. I found the statement that you're looking for. So Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature, so that's basically all of us, right? And go back home, back to Godhead, for him or for them, looking towards material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking towards them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So it's pretty extreme. But the idea here is that he's not saying that you can't see or associate with women and wealth, but the problem comes when you look towards those things with with a desire for sense gratification. Right. So that's the whole thing that Bhagavad Gita is teaching, is the difference between what we have to give up is not necessarily the thing or the association with groups of people, particularly the opposite sex or the objects of our, sexual attraction. But we just need to give up the idea of enjoying those things in people. Right? So, yeah, enjoying them for our using them for our sense gratification. We have to stop seeing them as objects for our sense gratification. We have to stop, like men have to stop seeing women as sex objects, and women have to stop seeing men as sex objects, and we have to see everyone as spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna, and support each other in our spiritual path. And that's it. And then it's not a problem, right? The problem is when the desire is wrong. So what we have to do is purify our desire. And that's really what purification of existence means, is purifying our desires. Kunti? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Kunti. Coming out here then.
Well, if you find me hanging from a tree, just know.
So say that you purify our desire, but how do you practically do that? Yeah, so we do that by approaching Krishna, right? Like the famous example is Dhruva Maharaj, that he had that desire to have a kingdom greater than his father's, greater than his grandfather's. And so Narada Muni said, okay, Dhruva, if this is what you want, do devotional service and really try to please the Lord Vishnu. So he did basically bhakti, the process that he chanting the holy names, making a deity, worshiping the deity, doing austerities, praying, all those things. So he did all that to get the kingdom. And then what happened was, in the process of performing bhakti, devotional service to the Lord under the guidance of the spiritual master, then the Lord actually was so pleased by his service that he appeared before him. And then he said, all right, Dhruva, I really appreciate, all your worship and all of your service, and I'm here to give you that kingdom that you wanted. And then little Dhruva Maharaj was like, actually, I did want the kingdom, and that's why I started worshiping you. But after worshiping you and serving you and praying and chanting, something changed in me. I've had a transformation. I don't really want that anymore. All I really want is to keep on serving you, because bhakti is so nice, and the happiness that I get from serving you is a lot more than the happiness that I'm going to get from any material kingdom or anything else. So when we have material desires, just don't worry about it, right? Don't act on them, but just channel that passion, channel that energy into Krishna's service and do devotional service with a lot of force, like a lot of intensity, right? There's that verse in Bhagavatam that says, Akama sarva kamo va Purusham, that whether you have no desires or whether you have all kinds of material desires or whether you're desiring liberation, just perform bhakti yoga with a lot of intensity, with great determination and strength, and to the Supreme Person, and everything's going to work out fine. So yeah, because bhakti gradually purifies us, especially see, Dhruva, he wasn't even interested in the Lord. He wanted his kingdom. He didn't care about God at all. He just saw God as, if you're the guy who's going to give me my kingdom, I'll do whatever you want, you know? But see, with us, it's different because we actually want a relationship with Krishna. We want to please Krishna. We want to go and live with Krishna forever and serve him. But we also want other things, right? That's the problem. So in that case, if Krishna removed Dhruva Maharaj's desire, even when he wasn't interested in the Lord, then what to speak of us, you know? He's definitely going to help us. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, there's a whole passage that says that Krishna's, there's a nice passage where Krishna's actually like talking. And he's saying, you know what? Sometimes my devotees are so silly that you know, they're serving me, but at the same time, they're like harboring and like feeding these material desires. They approach me asking to fulfill their desires. And Krishna says, but you know, they're foolish in approaching me for material desires because the thing is, I'm gonna provide for them anyway. They don't need to ask me, you know, but he says they may be foolish in asking me to fulfill their material desires, which aren't going to make them happy anyway. But I'm not such a fool. Why should I be so foolish as to, you know, indulge them? So instead of fulfilling their material desires, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove their material desires and instead give them the shelter of my lotus feet. So that's what Krishna does, is that he gradually removes our material desires and gives us shelter at his lotus feet. So, yeah. So what was your original question? What if you have material desires? Yeah, I just got to do bhakti. There's no other answer, you know? This is the process for uprooting all these weeds of the heart. So, like Dhruva Maharaj, to take shelter of a spiritual master and practice bhakti, not whimsically, but under the guidance of guru, sadhus, and shastra, and, you know, be very sincere and determined, despite our material desires, you know. And we can also speed up we can expedite the process by praying to Krishna to please remove these desires. They're just a disturbance, you know. Yeah. Or fulfill them in such a way that I don't want the thing anymore. You know, sometimes Krishna just takes away the desire, and sometimes he'll fulfill the desire, but he'll make a special arrangement that that the fulfillment of the desire will make us disgusted with the whole thing and just be like, oh my God, I was so stupid. Why did I ever pray for that thing? I just trust Krishna, he'll figure it out. He knows everything. And he's all powerful, so he can make all these arrangements. Okay, so no need to hang yourself from a tree, Arjuna. Okay. Time. We have 15 minutes. So the next quality is cultivation of spiritual knowledge, and that's also for sannyasis. Well, it's for everyone, but especially for sannyasis. So who out there wants to read? Ali's got her axe, gonna cut down that banyan tree of material existence with the axe of attachment. Whoops, there's an echo somewhere. Arjuna, you want to read?
Yeah, I can read. I got lost because I was driving. We're still on 1 through 3.
Yeah, we're on the third. Oh wait, we're on the paragraph that starts. The next item is Jnana Yoga.
Okay. Okay, the next item is Jnana Yoga, Vyavasthiti, being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten the real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he is a beggar. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person, and out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is the duty of a sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi, or one in the renounced order of life, must be situated in fearlessness, sattva samshuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, knowledge. Should I continue or stop?
No, that's okay. I was just you have to mute yourself, Arjuna, so you echo.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, this last thing is jnana yoga vyavastiti. Distributing jnana yoga, distributing knowledge, specifically knowledge by which we can connect, right? Because yoga means to link or connect with the Lord. So distributing that knowledge by which the conditioned souls can reconnect with Krishna. And that's why sannyasis have to travel. Nowadays, in ISKCON, there's a sannyas ministry. So if any, men want to take sannyas, they have to approach the sannyas ministry. And sannyas ministry will, what's it called? Well, first they'll vet them. They'll look at all their, their track record of their devotional achievements and the qualities and experience and things like that. But they'll also give them a trial run, right? So they'll be like, all right, we'll put you on the sannyas waiting list. Usually they put them on like a 5-year waiting list. And then during that 5 years, they basically like say, okay, you need to go to this country, that country. They make him just like travel all over the world. And usually during that time, they send them to like the very difficult countries, they send them to like obscure countries where there's hardly any devotees, where there aren't big temples with a lot of money and facility. And the sannyasi just has to go, and stay in some wherever and, accept whatever and just depend on Krishna. And if during those 5 years, the devotee is like, this is too much, or I need my comforts or whatever, then he doesn't take sannyas. Or he gets put on a longer waiting list and then there's training and things. So sannyasis need to travel because they need to distribute knowledge. Of course, they could also travel locally, right? And I think and now we're talking about like new sannyasis, like young sannyasis. So they still need to travel. And I mean, young men in India who want to take sannyas, they're generally going to travel in India because they can't travel so widely all over the world because of visa problems, basically, So they travel in India. There's a lot of preaching work to do in India. And the other thing is that sannyasis need to have a lot of knowledge because, they need to, otherwise, what are they going to say? What are they going to preach? What are they going to, if you need knowledge to be able to teach? So, of course, they should have studied in brahmachari. We'll read about that, one of the things that brahmacharis need to do is study. So, but especially for a sannyasi, you need to be very well versed in the scriptures, and they need to get out there and travel. Prabhupada says going door to door. So in the Vedic culture, the sannyasis, because they're not allowed to like have a job or means of earning livelihood, like through a salary or a craft or business or whatever, the only thing they're allowed to do is beg. So they would go door to door asking for food or donations or whatever, cloth, whatever they needed, they would have to beg. And Prabhupada said that this culture, this lifestyle of sannyasis as beggars is for two purposes. One is to cultivate humility, because we heard a few paragraphs ago that the sannyasi is like the head of all of the whole varnashram system, right? He's like the topmost person. So if you're like on the and it's rare to take sannyas, like sannyasis are rare. So if you're like, kind of like in an exclusive position at the top of all the other varnas and ashrams, then you could become proud. But if you have to go out and literally beg for your food, for your survival, then you have to be humble. Because if you're proud and arrogant, no one's going to give you anything. They're just going to close the door in your face. So humility is good. It's helpful. And then, but the main reason is that when they go door to door, they don't just say, "Oh, thank you very much for the flour or the rice or whatever," but they sit like the household. The custom is that when someone like that comes to your door, you invite them in, you give them a sitting place, something to drink, maybe food, sit them down and offer them some food and say some sweet words. And then, of course, the sannyasi is going to speak. Right. And so sannyasi, he's not going to talk about the weather and the news and politics or whatever. He's going to talk about Krishna. He's going to give jnana yoga to the people. So that's the whole culture is like that. And because he's cultivated humility, then wherever he travels to, even if somebody can only give him, some simple food or a simple straw mat to sleep on or something at night, he's fine with that because he's not expecting, he's not proud, he's not expecting anything, any honor or anything from anybody else. So these qualities go really well with sannyas ashram. Okay. Any thoughts about that? Anyone out there want to take sannyas? Oh, it's all girls except Arjuna. Arjuna, gonna take sannyas one day? He's raising his
Yes.
Die.
I like the idea of getting people to help me at home and clean up and make me lunch. So I shall.
Well,
No, I find the ashram very interesting. I mean, I've thought about it, but I feel like there are a lot of limitations, particularly when it comes to preaching. I feel like, I personally have, like a closer relationship with girls, I feel in general. And I feel like that is somehow necessary, but taking on an ashram like that will definitely be very limiting.
That's true. Yeah.
But Vanaprastha shall do.
Vanaprastha is good.
I shall follow in your footsteps.
Jai. Yeah, one time I was talking to Kalakan Prabhu. So anyone doesn't know him, he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he's also a guru in ISKCON. And yeah, so he's in his early 70s and he preaches and travels a lot. And he's had children are grown up, he's got grandkids already and stuff. So one time I was asking him if he ever considered taking sannyas, because he's such a good preacher, and I was thinking that would be nice if he could like travel more, just like make himself a little more accessible. So then he said, you know what? If I thought that taking sannyas would facilitate my service, I would do it. But he said that he feels like Grihastha ashram is a better situation for his particular service because at that time he was basically still kind of temple president of Gainesville. He was just starting to pass it off onto his disciple Shruti Sagar, but he was still very actively involved in management, or at least guiding the management. And another thing he was doing was he was having check-ins with all the new devotees. So men and women. So of course women he wouldn't meet alone with. He would have a third person there, or he would sit on the front porch where there are always people walking by and stuff. So he was careful about that. But if he was a sannyasi, it would be more difficult. One, he wouldn't be able to be so involved locally because he would have to travel. Two, he wouldn't be able to talk because sometimes he would meet with when he was talking to the lady, meeting with girls or women, At that time, his wife was treasurer at the temple, so she was there. So often they would meet together. Like if a girl was coming for a check-in, it would be husband and wife together, and they would both talk to, there would be. So that was really sweet because then you also got, some guidance from Mother Gita, and she was very nice, saintly person. So yeah, it worked out well. And also he was able to sometimes help his like brahmacharis and brahmacharinis transition into grihastha ashram because he was a grihastha. He could help them, getting situated with their careers, their financial situation, their married life. So as a sannyasi, I mean, he still has the experience of having gone through grihastha ashram, but as a sannyasi, it's like you don't really want to get too involved, you kind of gave up all that stuff. So it's not so conducive. Yeah. So one has to just know. Then there's someone like S.B. Keshava Swami, and he's just like a born renunciate. He just never wanted to marry. And he just travels all over the world all the time. And such an inspired preacher. So eloquent and simple, humble. And yeah. So different strokes for different folks. Right? But the thing is that we just need to find out which ashram is best for us, in which ashram we feel most strong. Because if we're well situated, then we're going to be strong. If we're not well situated, we're going to feel like we're in our, they say you shouldn't be if you're in your comfort zone, then you're not really growing. And so there's 3 zones, the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and the panic zone, right? So comfort zone is like, this is nice, everything is good, but you don't grow. You just sit there and kind of stagnate in your comfort zone. And then panic zone is like, it's too much. You're just like being pushed way out on a limb. You're being forced to act in ways that are just like beyond your capacity. It's just totally against your nature. It's just like, overwhelming, so you don't want to be there too because it's not sustainable. Maybe you can do it like running on adrenaline or something for a short time, but you're going to crash and burn. So that's not so the best place to be for spiritual advancement is in the stretch zone where it's like, okay, I'm stable, I'm rooted, I have my needs met, and I also have some challenges, right? I also have some I'm being pushed to take on responsibilities that I kind of, I'm not sure. And that's a good space to be in because that means we're going to get support. We're going to get training. We're going to learn. We're going to grow. Yeah. It's like swimming, right? Like if a child is just like is afraid of the water and just wants to sit on the beach playing in the sand and stuff, then they're never going to learn how to swim. And then same thing if you just throw them in the deep end, they might like they might drown or they might get out or someone pull them out, but they'll be like afraid of water for the rest of their life because they suffered in the water. But if you put them in water, like up to their middle and then you teach them how to swim and they're a little bit scared at first and they're like, oh no, I'm sinking, what am I going to do? But then they can just put their feet down and catch themselves and try again, then they'll learn. Right? So we have to be in that situation where we're being pushed to do something that we're uncomfortable with, but we're in a position where we're safe. And we have the support and training to develop those skills and qualities that we need to be able to do it. Okay? So there's comfort zone, stretch zone, and panic zone. We should be in the stretch zone. Stretch zone, yeah. Stretch. Like stretch. Yeah. I remember when I was teaching in school, we were teaching elementary children how to read and I would take I was teaching, sorry. I was doing that first. And then after I had a class I was teaching fourth grade. That was the first class that I taught was fourth grade. So then we would take them to the school library and then we would help them choose books. So they're like, yeah, they're still learning how to read. They don't know like all the words and stuff. So then the principal was telling us that when you take the kids to, you need to guide, because they'll just go and get comic books or baby books or something, and they don't learn. The whole point is not just to learn read for enjoyment, but to read to learn, because kids need to learn, and that's what school's for. So she said that sit down with the kid and just have them read a page of the book, any page, doesn't matter. And then she said that on each page, there should be 10 words that they stumble on, that they don't know how to pronounce, they don't know what it means. That's a good book. If they read the whole page and they pronounce everything perfectly and they know what everything means, it's too easy for them. And if there's like, more than 10 words that they can't pronounce and don't know what it means, then they're not going to be able to read it. Basically, they're not going to be able to understand it, and they won't, like, it's too advanced for them. So yeah, the thing is, like, we don't want to be in a situation where it's just like, I know everything here, right? We'll just start feeling like a big fish in a small pond, no space to grow. Nor do we want to be like, I haven't got a clue what's going on here. I'm totally overwhelmed, and but we want to be like, okay, I have something. I see that I need to learn. There's things I need to learn, but I can get most of it, right? Like on the words on the page. I understand basically everything that's happening on this page, just a few words I need to look up in the dictionary, but I'm learning those words, right? Yeah. So that's kind of like a model for life, right? 10 words on the page that you need to learn. Not too many, but not too little, but keep learning. Yeah. Okay, we better end here. Thank you all for joining. Let me just see what's happening out there on YouTube. Okay, here we go. Oh, not much here, just a few people saying Haribol, Jai Srila Prabhupada, and whether I'm going to visit Mayapur. Yeah, I'm planning to visit Mayapur. Hey, Yash Zinzuwadia, thanks for being here. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Hare Krishna.